I'm Jim with Marine Electronics Installation. Here today to talk to you a little bit about picking a Chartplotter MFD or a GPS fish finder combination unit for offshore, inshore use, and some of this will also pertain to freshwater. First off, I want to mention that there are a lot of good brands out there, and I'm not partial, I'm not endorsing one brand over another. But a lot of brands have a strong point and a weak point. I don't know of any one brand that is the best at everything, so I am going to mention some brand names and make some recommendations. First off, a couple questions that need to be answered. You need to choose a brand and a model. You need to choose your screen size, and you also need to know if you can get by with a basic GPS fish finder combination unit or if you need multifunction units. Ease of use is one of the big things to consider when picking out a machine. You want to choose a brand that has a user interface that's easy to understand and navigate. We get a lot of feedback from installations that we do from customers, and it seems like two brands really stand out in the ease of use area. That would be Simrad and Garmin. Some of the other machines are not much more difficult to use, but from the feedback we get, those two brands really seem to be the main ones. If you're techie and you don't mind digging through menus and learning new things, then some of the other brands, their menus are a little more advanced, a little more difficult to navigate, but they also make really good machines also. Another choice that you need to think about is if you want touchscreen, buttons, or a hybrid screen, which is a combination of touch and buttons. Now, I will say that years ago, most of the screens were buttons. There were very few hybrids out there and touchscreens until the last few years. They're really becoming popular. The touchscreen really has gotten to be a pretty reliable, easy to use, long-lasting screen. There were a few issues when they first came to market. The first couple screens out had problems with rain. Things touching the screen would make it jump from page to page, but most of that has all been taken care of now. They're pretty reliable, they're easy to use. It's fast. A touchscreen typically is faster to get through menus than buttons. Most of the menus are pretty intuitive on the new touchscreens also. Another thing is support and warranty. There are some big differences in support and warranty between the brands. As far as technical support on the phone, Furuno and Garmin and Simrad really tend to be the three that stand out. They answer the phone pretty fast. They're really good at giving technical support and getting problems fixed on the phone. So those brands really do stand out. There are a couple other brands that I've had some extremely long wait times on the phone, and we have dealer numbers and we still have long wait times. Some of these manufacturers just get really bogged down with technical questions and calls, and they're very slow to respond. Others are really good about responding, so you might want to look into that just in case you do have a question on your unit, or if you have a problem with the unit. It's always nice to be able to get technical support. Another thing is SONAR. SONAR in itself is a pretty big subject now. Years ago, most of the SONAR was just simple, traditional, pulse-based SONAR, nothing fancy. It was in use for many, many years and worked great, but there have been some major advances in SONAR in the last 5 or 6 years. The CHIRP SONAR is fast becoming a standard, and it does give you more resolution, better accuracy. It paints fish a little better, structure better than the traditional sonar does. There's also side imaging, forward imaging, and down imaging sonar. These are fairly new technologies. The side imaging is quickly becoming very popular. It's going to be a standard for shallow water. Many of the units it's now built into that you can purchase. There's no additional black boxes needed. You just need to buy a transducer and have it installed, and you'll have side imaging. Forward imaging is fairly new as far as fish finding technology. It's been around for a long time for sailing and cruising vessels, but not with the resolution that they have now. Also, there are a few other technologies out there, such as a 360-degree imaging that one of the companies have. Humminbird has that. There are a lot of different options here. One thing you have to consider is the number and type of transducers that will need to be installed into your boat in order to make all these technologies work. There are some transducers out there that CHIRP and side imaging and down imaging are built into one unit, but for the most part, to get really good performance out of it, you sometimes need to have multiple transducers. Some of this depends upon the type of boat you have and the type of sonar you want to put in it. The best thing to do is talk to a professional that's done these installs, and you can come out and take a look at the boat and see what will fit in your boat and if it is possible. There are a few cases, certain boat manufacturers that they seem to be behind the times a little bit. They're not keeping up with electronics, and some of the boats are near impossible to actually put the forward and side imaging into. Sometimes fiberglass modification has to be done to the inside or even the outside of the boat, and in a few very rare cases it cannot be installed in the boat. Modifications are just too extreme to make these technologies work. So before you purchase it, it's always a good idea to talk to somebody that knows what you need, take some measurements, find out if it's even possible on your boat. And another thing is, if you're purchasing a new boat, you may want to take a look at the boat and make sure that there's enough access to put the transducers that you need in the boat before you make the purchase. Another thing is ability to interface to outside modules. XM weather is an option. Radar is an option. You may want to do a second or third screen, especially if you have a larger boat or you have a boat with a flybridge or a tower. A screen up on the tower and another one down below is a nice option. If you're going to also be doing some cruising or fishing in a larger boat to where you've got a cabin on it, an iPad interface is also handy. Some people do like to use their iPads as, say, a second or third screen. You can see all the information that you have on your main multifunction display right on the iPad, such as FISHFINDER, GPS, weather. So that is also an option. Cost of the unit and screen size is another consideration. Obviously, the unit needs to fit into your budget, and the screen size needs to be able to fit onto your boat. Sometimes we can do a bracket mount on a smaller boat on top of a console if there's not enough room on the dash. A ram mount may also be another option, but most of the time you're going to want the units flush mounted into the dash if it is possible. This makes a nice weather-tight seal, and it's less likely to be stolen off of your boat that way. It also looks nicer. The units are easier to take care of. You don't have the back side of the unit exposed to the elements. It's inside the console, it's protected. But we need to make sure that the units will fit into the dash, so measurements would need to be taken, and it's best to talk to a professional, or at least if you're going to measure yourself, get the specs off of the website for the unit you're looking at and tape measure out and lay it out on the dash, and just be sure that the units that you've selected are going to fit into your boat before you purchase them.